good late Thursday or like Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at those temperatures across the region. I know it's a pretty late hour here, but still warm. I mean, it's really that summertime pattern. I know, getting toward that mid-June point here. It is Friday the 13th, since we're, in toward tonight here. Pretty far past midnight as we're looking at things, and you see some scattered shower action. Been watching some stuff toward the Taylor County vicinity, give or take, but nothing too noteworthy. But those temperatures here, they are definitely a story, and during the day they're downright dangerous at points. I know, gotta always remember to check that back seat of the car there. So important because it gets so hot. If you have a child in the back seat in like 20 minutes, it could just be, even less than that. It could be a deadly scenario there. So really gotta be mindful of that. I gotta be mindful of that, that air conditioning off, and then it could become a tragedy. So just gotta keep that in mind. I know we're at 71 degrees here east of Stark right now as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. I know we have Flag Day on Saturday, Father's Day on Sunday, Juneteenth there coming up next Thursday. So quite a few different things going on as we look ahead in toward the timeline. And you see that general thunderstorm risk here on that Friday. But watching some scattered showers that, could, have that lightning with them in the form of thunderstorms, and always have to watch out. Can't rule out a severe storm here or there. So I didn't have any formal warnings on that Thursday. I had some hail reports, though. We were looking there. I believe it's Gilchrist County that we had a report. Wasn't quite the severe ranges there, but as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things, again, the radar pretty calm. But as I say, the last 12 hours, you guys know if you're in the word Union and on that Union-Bradford County line especially, it was rainy there on that Thursday evening. Lots of precip there. Just really telling that story. Some of these, oranges here, indicative, and this light orange indicative of over 5 inches of rain there, according to the Doppler radar, just north of Rayford in Union County. Over 5 inches of rain estimated by the Doppler radar. Now, if there's a little bit of hail in there, it might have been, contaminating this number upward a bit, because I have some totals. They were lower, but those aren't, exactly over the spot with the highest rainfall here. But what a big deal that was on that Thursday. Didn't have any flash flood warning there, anything like that. We did have a flood warning eventually, but most of the heaviest rain had already stopped by that point. Flood advisory in play there for a while. Never had any severe thunderstorm warnings or anything like that. Not necessarily meeting the criteria, with the winds, hail, or anything like that. And then the rain, though, I know that rainfall there, it's over more rural areas. So in general, things can drain, but I just know from experience, when you get that much rain that quickly, maybe a couple hours, give or take, you're going to have problems to some degree in some backyards. So you just got to keep that in mind. Remember, turn around, don't drown when you have that kind of rain. But we really do need the rain. I mean, it's a give and take, as long as, you're not getting flooded out, you're not, getting caught in a flood. And this is what you really actually want, because it's a little too much and too quick of a time for some spots, but we really don't want to see wildfires around. That's more dangerous, obviously, for the vast majority of us here as we're looking in the pattern we've been in. Now, the word Stark, I know we got a little over 9/10 of an inch here east of Stark, in town a little bit more than that. The radar kind of backs it up. I know the estimates here on radar is about 1.5 inches in town. And I know with the official reporting site there, per se, at Bradford Weather Stem there, it's the sheriff's office here, Bradford County Sheriff's Office. They picked up just a little less than 1.5 inches, but it's close. That general idea here as we're looking at light blue there, indicative of about 1.5 inches or so. The lightest blue, some of these other blues a little bit east, that dark blue only indicative of a 1/2 inch plus. But kind of telling this story here, that's the last 12 hours or so. But again, those purples there, indicative of more rain, 2+ inches in the dark purple as you're looking at things. And then those reds, that dark red over 2.5 inches, lightest red, red, well, let me add that up, I guess, I guess you call it the lightest red, depending on how you're wanting to look at the colors here. That's a little over 3 inches in general. The orange, the darker orange, a little over 4 inches, and then the lighter orange / yellow over 5 inches or so. So that's a lot of rain, obviously. A lot of rain here for sure. Again, areas like Rayford and Lake Butler, it says about 3.5 inches for Lake Butler, and It's about on target. They had little, under 4 inches, just under 4 inches. I'll save the exact number for the graphic, but at the weather sim site there in Lake Butler. But this is about, this is showing, if anything, maybe showing a situation where this is very slightly underdoing it here, right in the Ward town. So as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. But let's go up into Georgia here. I know there's some spots with quite a bit of rain. They have some flash flood alerts up into the Peach State there as we're looking at things in this area, this north of our area. Some areas getting over a half, almost at a half foot. Probably did an isolated spot or two. This is on a little over 5 inches though, and the lightest yellow, but or lightest orange as we're looking at things. So again, looking toward our area, there you see some ridge, and toward Liberty County, it's about 3 inches of rain or so. Gadsden County, this east and north of Quincy, a little over 3 inches of rain. So a lot of that, confined further to the east. I mean, parts of, let me try that here. I'm trying to get the word now. Levy County here. I was about to say Leon, but no, Levy County here. Little over 3 inches of rain there southwest of Williston, especially. They had some hail mixed in with them, sure. Gilchrist County had some hail reported over 4 inches, but this could have been overdone a little with the hail mixing in. That's between Trenton and Newberry, but Newberry probably only got about 1/3 of an inch. Trenton there, about an inch. So it varies a lot here based on where you're at. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So let me go ahead and show you those names here, though, in the tropics. This wasn't from anything in the tropics in terms of a name system or anything like that. It's, the storms just getting going here locally. We need them. And different boundaries coming together. But Andrew is the first name. Nothing imminent. We may need to watch something for Texas or Mexico late next week. But even then, it may not be something, that's just overwhelming. Some of the models are starting to hint at something that I think they may be onto something with. We'll see. We'll see as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. I'm not, again, overly concerned by any stretch here. Hurricane Center doesn't have anything next 7 days for the Atlantic Basin there, the Gulf, the Caribbean Sea. So that's good news. But as we go ahead and look here, the climatology, you see August, September, October, our busiest months really from about August, let's say 10th to about October 10th, give or take, is when we have that stretch where it really get busy. I mean, I go back to August 10th because of Charlie on August 13th. I mean, we had Debbie before that, before my birthday, which is the 7th of August. Debbie came on through here as a hurricane, but in general, it's about the 10th-ish there. Even that might be a little early, but again, I wanted to include Charlie because that was such a volatile, system in 2004 as we were looking. So let's just say that to about October 10th-ish. That's when Michael hit, October 10th, and Matthew around that same time frame. So, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here, I know we're tracking Milton there. We're tracking Milton pretty late on into the season, as well as we were looking at things, I think it was late September. We had so many things, here going. Let me double check my dates on that. As we're looking here. Or maybe that might have been Helene. That's just how it goes, I guess, sometimes here in the Weather Center. Milton actually was in October there. As we're tracking. It was closer to that October 5th, October 10th time frame. I think that was Helene I'm thinking about. We had so many last year. So much going on, and then Debbie, and then, of course, we had Helene, and then Milton. So a lot going on there as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things tropically there in the Atlantic Basin. So, yeah, the 5th to the 10th October, I'm pulling that up in my other system. But my date's right there, but yeah, that's kind of why we do it like that. I mean, after about October 10th, the pattern switches, but have those different things with the Central American gyre that become an issue. Now, sometimes early in the season, but late in the season, that's when we really have to watch here. That's when we really have to watch here with the tropics. We've had some of those worst storms really come across, because of that. It's always got to be a mindful here as we're tracking things, Now, here's that rainfall I was alluding to. Thursday rainfall totals by location. Lake Butler, almost 4 inches there. And whether it's inside in Union County, start there, or, excuse me, where that site is with the weather station, a little over an inch. And then east of Start there, a little less than an inch. That's my Davis weather station here where I'm at, east of town. 0.91 inches there measured. And again, rainfall is much needed, but a few quick inches can still cause flooding. So keep that in mind. I know that rainfall forecast, seeing that precip still around in the next 7 days. You see parts of Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas getting, multiple inches possibly here on average next 7 days. Parts of Texas, Louisiana even as well. But for our area, still a good bit more rain expected on average. I mean, we're talking about, half inch to an inch on average. Some spots maybe a little less on the averages there, but whenever thunder roars, go indoors, and some isolated spots will definitely get a lot more than that. So definitely keep that in mind as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in toward the weather center. So it's always important to kind of keep in mind there as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. Okay, that drought monitor, this was the updated look there on Thursday. Again, we still need the rain. You see Marion, Putnam, Flagler still having some severe drought there as we're looking. Parts of St. Johns County in there. Just gotta always be mindful of that. I mean, I'm sure we helped some of that in Bradford on that. Bradford Union line might be out of that after what we had there. Yeah, normally dry after what we had on that Thursday. We'll find out next week when this is released. But there may have been enough rain to kind of peel that back, which would be good. But as we look here, as we track things, we probably do need, rain in some of these areas still. Not everybody, though, as we saw. We got enough for a little bit there toward that Bradford Union County line. Didn't have any, severe warnings we posted about this strong thunderstorm accident around Bradford over on Facebook. Whenever this, severe weather, we'll be posting, on Facebook and Twitter/X. And then whenever there's tornado warning storms or a little bit more, escalated severe weather potential here locally or nationally, we'll be streaming there. Really big deal nationally is when we'll be on for that. But we'll be streaming on Facebook, KC Cloud Reacts, Cloud Weather, Twitter/X at Cloud KC, YouTube at Cloud Weather, and then Twitch Cloud Weather. So always good sources to keep in mind. You have the website there, cloudweather.com, the interactive radar, and the like. And then as we go ahead and look at things here, as we progress, you see that extended forecast. You see that. You got to remember that thunderstorm activity can be dangerous. When thunder roars, you need to go indoors. 60% chance of rain on Friday, 70% on Saturday, 60% Father's Day. So, as we're tracking things, Flag Day, looking like the highest rain chance there as we're looking at things. But really, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's just maybe a little bit more backyards getting it one day to the next, maybe on Saturday. But some of us aren't going to get rain maybe Saturday, and they will on Sunday or another day or multiple days. It's really hard to say, but just on the averages here based on the region as well. We're a little higher there, but as you look here, and it's going to get really, even hotter as we have less rain chance, around per se, still 50% up there, but 95 there by your Thursday, by that Juneteenth holiday. So as we're looking and as we're tracking things, so it's just tricky with this. We're above average of the temperatures here, and then the rain chances. So we need the rain though. When we're hot like this, and when we've been dry, we need the precip because, if you have the thunderstorm accent around, you don't just want to get the light and nothing else. So we got probably too much rain toward that Union Bradford line on Thursday, and, half a foot of rain probably, in a spot. Even it's not out of the question based on the radar estimates, a little over 5. I mean, it's possible they could have been contaminated a little for the hail, but I wouldn't be surprised if some, road in there, just based on the isolated nature, the heaviest convection could have got close to a half foot on that Thursday there, so that's very noteworthy. And we don't want it that quick because that can cause flooding, the roads and the like. But we do need the precip because we don't want wildfires. We've seen it so many times before. I mean, even with all the rain, spots we've had. I mean, that outlook that came out on Thursday was through early Tuesday on the drought. Look at things. We still had a lot of severe drought around. Really, it's not, everybody by any means, but Putnam and looking at Flagler and Marion, a little bit of St. John's in there, having that's concerning. We need the rain. We need the rain. I know too much too quick isn't good though, but we don't want wildfires, and the rain will help put a damper on that here in general. So that's what we want to do. We want the precip. I know I've been saying that for a while, but let's go ahead and look here at some other maps before we wrap things up. Uh, let's go ahead and kind of, look. I mean, that Interon star, give or takes, more what you'd want than, you'd want that like every day here for a while. I know it's not great for plans, and you got to watch out for the lightning, but that's better than getting the 6 inches all at once, give or take. But not going to really work out exactly like that. But you just don't want drought. You don't want fires. When you have the rain, that helps things a lot there, obviously. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up. I hope you guys stay safe out there. I'll be back as needed through the next few days with any warnings that, really are noteworthy here as we look, this pattern test. And this happened with the boundaries. All of a sudden you get something to spin up. You just never know. So you just got to be mindful of that here as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things here. I'm really expecting that here. Of course, nationally, there is actually an enhanced risk of severity that came out in a new update here toward areas further north. So let's see that parts of Montana under that here of all places. That's not the normal area you get for a severe risk. See, it's pretty cool right now, but as we look ahead toward that Friday, we're gonna have some issues up there. Billings, Great Falls, Lewiston there. Or Lewistown, I'm not sure which how you pronounce that one because I've heard Lewiston in Idaho. It may be Lewistown there actually in Montana. But anyway, that's how little we talk about severe weather up there. But there's even a tornado risk that could get a tornado watch for some of these areas on that Friday. Great Falls, Billings, you kind of get the idea there. That's not something you get up there very often at all. I know we had some different warnings as we looked. I think it was Wyoming. We had a tornado warning on that Thursday as we were looking and tracking things. I went in Arkansas too, I noticed, but it was noteworthy as we were looking there, just northeast of Little Rock around Cabot. Some radar indicator rotation. But as we look here, Great Falls, Billings there, you get the idea. There is that risk of isolated tornado in that region. The hail risk is what is prompting the enhanced does. We're looking Great Falls to Billings there. You kind of get the idea of that vicinity. The wind risk, that gets down there quite a bit further, more noteworthy, all the Texas Panhandle. So I'll have to watch that. I doubt we'll have to cut in for anything out here unless something just tornadically gets crazy. That'd be a, real surprise. Don't get that very often in Montana, but it can happen. You see wind risk and hail, significant ones. So could have some damaging weather in Montana of all places there. That's where it's really focused on that Friday there. Great Falls to Billings and points in between there. As we're getting in the mountain time zone, that's where that would be. So, again, this is not an area we talk about hardly ever on weather to have a tornado risk. And, let me just throw the tornado safety tips up real quick here. Wasn't necessarily going to say these before we went off, but, these areas are not familiar with tornadoes that much. It can happen up here, and they can be strong. It's just we don't really talk about it much because it's a predominant area for severe weather potential. There's a risk up there sometimes, It'll be a risk that's a little bit more expansive too, though. Again, that far west and that far north doesn't happen that often. Just seek such and such a sturdy building, get as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, or baseball helmet. And basements are preferable in a situation. I know I've never been to Montana or anything like that, but I would think they'd have basements up there as we get further up in toward the country as we look. I don't know much about Montana, honestly, but again, we do have a tornado risk here in play as we're looking up there on that Friday up that way. So that is noteworthy. I know some meteorologists have gone to work up there that I know, but that's about all. This is a state you don't really, look at here too much on the weather maps, quite honestly. But Great Falls, some of these areas there, Billings and the like, we got that risk of a tornado on that Friday. So you see some lightning popping up across the country here and there. As we're tracking things. I'll put the model up real quick to see how these storms are developing based on what it's showing. Just before we go here, I want to see this because not an area we talk about very much at all, but we'll go ahead and put this into motion here. We've been doing this here for over 5 years, and probably could count the number of times we've talked about Montana here. Maybe on one hand, maybe on two hands, but it's not something we talk about much. But you see, this is around. Let's do the math here. 2 hours behind, so 4 p.m. Mountain Time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m., 8. So you saw that kind of go across there. That could be an issue as they're looking out there in that region. Because people could be traveling on vacation this time of year, that are up there. So, from down here in the south, even our area. So important to keep an eye on the weather. Be very mindful of your surroundings with that. As we look locally here real quick, let me just go ahead and pull up our model here starting in the early afternoon. You see some convection around, and this is 3 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Not a guarantee it's going to set up like this, but 6 p.m., 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's how it's going to look on that Friday. Just be careful, if you're at the beach, watch out for the rough water at, time, especially if you're not accustomed to it. You got to be aware here. Even if it's not, necessarily too rough where you're at, if you're not accustomed to it, it can be deadly. And just whenever thunder roars, go indoors here. So important. So important to keep that in mind as we're looking here, as we're tracking things in toward the weather center. So that'll do it. Have a great night. Thunderstorm risk here on that Friday. Could have a strong or severe storm. We'll be on top of it, as conditions warrant. So have a great night, everybody.